Hey there, want to just take a few minutes and talk to you guys about professional communication. Communication is a large challenge in our businesses, and I think that we would all agree that if we could get better at it, then we would find time to do more, and we'd be able to make and save more money. And so the question is, how do we do that? Now, I don't have any silver bullet answer to this, but I can kind of give you my 2 cents and my observations from working with the companies over the last few years. A lot of times when a communication issue arises, the biggest thing that I hear people say, and even including myself, is I'll say, "Well, we should have just communicated more. Communication, that's our biggest problem," or "Wish we would have communicated a little bit better that information." I think professional communication, though, cannot or should not be confused with communicating more. Um, because I think that communicating more often leads to a problem, right? We over communicate. And a lot of times that information that gets communicated with the information that actually needs to be communicated confuses or changes what the receiver needs to know about that specific subject. Here's how I define professional communication. Communicating exactly what is needed to be communicated in as few steps as possible in a way that both parties completely understand. A good example of this would be when, like Amazon. Amazon communicates to you via their website and their app exactly what you need to know about their products when you're trying to make a product selection. They provide to you reviews, they provide to you a picture, they provide to you a description, they provide to you all this information that is essential and nothing more. It may seem like there is a ton of information on an Amazon page, but there have actually been studies that show that what is on an Amazon page is exactly what should be on an Amazon page in order to convert a customer or convert a viewer into a customer. Once you actually make that purchase, they will communicate to you only what you need to know as far as the delivery goes. You'll receive several emails that'll give you an indication of how much of when your product is going to show up and how long till that product actually shows up. And during that whole process, nobody ever thinks like, "Oh man, it's so crazy that Amazon is like communicating so much with me or sending me so many emails." They're not, because every email they send you is specific and pertinent to what you need to know about your order. I think that that's really important. There's some big important things that we can learn from that example and from being communicating professionally in general. And that is when you order from Amazon, for example, you're going to they're only communicating exactly what needs to be communicated, like I mentioned earlier. When we do that, when we communicate with others, internally or externally, we have to be careful that we don't over communicate something that doesn't need to be communicated, because a lot of times that just bogs down the system. Or only need to communicate exactly what the receiver needs to hear or to know. In order to do that, you have to know exactly what the receiver needs to know. And I know that sounds dumb or that sounds easy to know, but I think a lot of times we make the assumption that this is what the receiver needs to know. We don't actually know what the receiver needs to know. And so that's a challenge maybe I would give you is as you're thinking about the various points of communication that you have each day with people inside or outside of your company. Um, Make sure you take a second and think to yourself, do I know that this is what this person actually does need to know, or am I just sending it to them because that's what I have to send to them? Um, I think that this happens way more than we realize. If we understand exactly what that person needs to know, it's pretty easy for us on our end to tailor make a report or an order or whatever it is so that it fits exactly what that person needs. Um, and then I think it's important the few steps as possible as well. Amazon again does a great job at this. They only give you they send you emails. There's no phone calls that are involved. There's no extra steps besides exactly what you need to know. I think that this happens a lot sometimes, and I'm guilty of this because I'm a little OCD. When I place an order, I call, I email, I make sure it's on the board. I babysit that order until it goes. But what that does is it's not scalable, and it's also not trusting the system that's being built. I think in order for us to be successful, we have to create these systems so that it's one step, one email, or it's one thing that you put on the board and it just happens, and it just works really well. I'll just share an example of a time back in the day when I used to manage, when I used to work at Teton Trees as a sales guy there. Chris Kimball, when he worked at John Deere, and I used to work together, and I used to, Chris would buy stuff from me, and I'd send it to him. And a lot of time we would have some troubles on communicating, and one day he called me. He's like, "Dude, you're just not getting back on my stuff fast enough, or I text you, and and then it's just not getting back to you." And I finally told him, I says, like, "Is there any way you could email me, because I just don't get the texts. Like, I mean, I get the texts, but they don't. I can't flag them, and it sounds silly, but I can't organize them and put them into my everyday flow of things." And he was like, "Yeah, that's no problem." So that's what we started to do. He started to send me texts, or started to send me emails instead of texts of the orders, and things started to flow super fast. And he was able to get everything he needed to. And I thought that was a really interesting example, because he was communicating what he needed to communicate to me, but I just wasn't getting it in a way that I needed to get it in order to execute it as fast as possible. But as soon as we were able to get on the same page, and he understood exactly what I needed to know, or exactly how I needed to get that information, the things just flowed. I think that this is way doable for us in our company. It's a low-hanging fruit. I think we can all just take a moment, step back, and identify with all the different parts where we're communicating, or where information is shifting from one area to another. How is that information shifting, and is it shifting in the most effective way possible? Sometimes we come up with systems in our own companies, our communication systems in our own companies, that feel really good to us. Like, my boy, I created this report and I'm sending it out, and it is so nice looking, and it just tells all the information that it needs to tell. And that may look really good to you, but that may be completely irrelevant to the person you're sending it to. Or most likely, it's like half relevant. And I think that that's probably most of the cases, is that we send out stuff that's pretty relevant, but it could be communicated in a more effective way if we took the time to understand exactly what the recipient needed to work as effective as they needed to, and that possible. So, if you don't remember anything from this video, I said it would be short. I'm already 7 minutes into it. But remember this. Professional communication is communicating exactly what needs to be communicated in as few steps as possible, in a way that both parties completely understand it. Hope you enjoy, and good luck communicating.